In a wide-ranging interview between psychologist Jordan Peterson and presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the two delved into RFK Jr.'s political journey, his evolving relationship with the Democratic Party, and his surprising alliance with former President Donald Trump. The conversation also touched on key issues facing the United States, including chronic disease, censorship, and foreign policy, providing a glimpse into Kennedy's platform and his rationale for aligning with a candidate as controversial as Trump. RFK Jr., a lifelong Democrat from one of America's most iconic political families, expressed his deep disillusionment with the current direction of the Democratic Party. He emphasized that the party of today no longer represents the values it stood for during the Kennedy family's prominence in American politics. He described the party as having shifted too far to the left, citing its abandonment of free speech, its newfound alignment with corporate interests, and its increasing militarism. "The Democratic Party I grew up with was the party of peace and civil rights," said RFK Jr. "Now, it's the party of war and censorship." He attributed this shift to a broader realignment of political values in the U.S., where Democrats, once the champions of the working class and civil liberties, are now aligned with Wall Street and big tech. RFK Jr. contrasted this with his uncle, President John F. Kennedy's efforts to keep the U.S. out of war, and criticized today's Democratic leadership for inching the country closer to military conflicts. Perhaps the most intriguing aspect of the interview was RFK Jr.'s rationale for aligning with Trump, a move that surprised many given his family's long history with the Democratic Party. RFK Jr. explained that the alignment was not an endorsement of Trump's entire political agenda, but a shared understanding on three key issues: public health, free speech, and peace. He spoke candidly about his initial hesitation, recalling how the idea of aligning with Trump would have been unthinkable to him and his family just a few years ago. However, as he grew increasingly disenchanted with the Democratic Party, especially on matters of censorship and foreign policy, Kennedy saw Trump's team as a potential ally in addressing the country's most pressing challenges. He praised Trump for surrounding himself with unconventional but capable figures such as Elon Musk, Tulsi Gabbard, and Vivek Ramaswamy, and noted that these individuals represented a break from the traditional Republican establishment. Focus on chronic disease and health reform. A major portion of the discussion centered on the chronic disease epidemic in the United States, which RFK Jr. identifies as the most pressing issue facing the nation. He attributed the country's health crisis to toxic processed foods, environmental pollutants, and the corporate greed of large agricultural and pharmaceutical companies. Kennedy lamented the fact that 60% of Americans now suffer from some form of chronic disease, a sharp contrast to the 6% when his uncle John F. Kennedy was president. He outlined his plan to address this crisis through executive action, bypassing Congress when necessary. RFK Jr. called for drastic reforms to the food and pharmaceutical industries, which he said have prioritized profits over public health. "We're poisoning our people," Kennedy argued, citing rising rates of obesity, diabetes, and autism in children. Concerns over censorship and foreign policy. Censorship was another key theme of the interview, with RFK Jr. criticizing both the Democratic Party and corporate media for suppressing dissenting voices. He stressed the importance of free speech as a pillar of democracy, warning that increased censorship leads to authoritarianism. On foreign policy, RFK Jr. expressed grave concerns about the Biden administration's handling of the Ukraine conflict and its potential to escalate into nuclear war. He criticized Vice President Kamala Harris's leadership, suggesting that she is susceptible to manipulation by neoconservatives in the administration. Conclusion. In his interview with Jordan Peterson, RFK Jr. positioned himself as a candidate willing to break with the establishment on both sides of the political spectrum. His alliance with Trump, driven by shared concerns over public health, censorship, and war, marks a significant shift in American political dynamics. While his views may alienate traditional Democrats, they resonate with a growing segment of voters disillusioned by the status quo. As the 2024 election looms, RFK Jr.'s political realignment could shape the future of American politics.